Washington is reportedly considering expanding the role of the CIA in Yemen in the aftermath of the media coverage of suspicious U.S.-bound packages allegedly originating from the country. Reports say the White House is weighing options that include secretly putting elite hit squads in Yemen, operating under the authority of the CIA. That would allow the U.S. to act unilaterally without seeking permission from the Yemeni government. American military units are traditionally overseen by the Pentagon, which needs the permission of the local government for operations. This is why the CIA activities are carried out covertly. Missile strikes on alleged targets are among other options being considered by the Obama administration. Let's talk a little bit more about this with Mark Dankoff, is a former Senate candidate, joining me from San Antonio. Many thanks for being with us. The whole story about the so-called suspicious packages from Yemen and its aftermath in the U.S. media seems to have a lot of holes in it. Besides, some of the actions that made the headlines, like the military escorting of an Emirates airliner, did not seem to make any sense. What do you read from all these stories?
Well, my radio partner, Mark Glenn, with The Ugly Truth, has had some conversations with me about this. Both of us see it as highly significant that many of these developments have taken place just before the American off-year elections. The other thing that's abundantly clear is precisely the thing that you cite tonight on Press TV, and that is this front-page story today in the Wall Street Journal talking about this role that is being pushed to allow the Central Intelligence Agency to take over these special forces operations in Yemen. It's clearly, from my vantage point, a highly dangerous concept that is fraught with danger. I think it's going to deepen problems for the United States in Yemen. It's designed, in my judgment, to produce a counter-reaction both against the current government in Yemen as well as facilitating the ongoing recruitment of additional people for these activities, alleged or otherwise, on the part of these so-called Islamic extremists. So it's clear that what you have developing here is a foreign policy by stealth, and when the Wall Street Journal makes reference to some degree of congressional oversight of these activities, I would simply ask, what congressional oversight? I've not heard anyone up on Capitol Hill, Republican or Democrat, raising any questions whatsoever about what the CIA and the President are up to in Yemen, how much money is going to be involved in this, what kind of manpower we are committing to this, and whether or not there's going to be, as I think there clearly will be, serious political blowback from these activities, just as I think we're seeing political blowback against the United States taking place in Pakistan, where these drone strikes, among other things, have in many cases produced the exact opposite effect from what was originally intended.
And one thing, Mr. Dankoff, one result of a scare like this is the erosion of privacy. And as it seems, maybe the targeted killings by U.S. drones could increase in countries like Yemen. And what the media are doing is they're even making it worse. What is the objective of such media campaigns?
Well, I think we have to ask ourselves who it is that has undue influence in the American media. And I have argued consistently for the fact that when you look at the amount of pro-Israeli and pro-Zionist influence in the American media that's demonstrably there, this is facilitating, I think, the kind of ongoing interventionist policies in the Middle East on the part of the United States that the Israeli lobby favors. And it seems to me that as this thing continues to deepen, as we get more people involved, more people killed on both sides, more money spent, the facilitation of greater national debt on the part of the United States, and a deepening political quagmire for both the current President of the United States as well as for any possible successor to him, it becomes abundantly clear that this is a policy that is designed, in my judgment, to fail. It's a different version of the same kind of thing that failed to work for the United States in Southeast Asia a couple of generations ago. Now we're seeing that same type of thing repeating itself here, both in Iraq and Afghanistan, and of course, as I'm sure you folks are aware at Press TV, There's a tremendous cry on the part of the so-called war party in this country to facilitate either an Israeli strike on your country or an American strike on your country with the full connivance of Israel, or both. So it's a dangerous situation, and I think this interventionist policy in Yemen is a part of this larger package. Whenever you look at this sort of thing in terms of what is happening with American foreign policy in the Middle East, you can generally trace it back to the Israeli lobby, the central bankers, and the oil and natural gas consortiums. This, in effect, is a foreign policy being run by the Israelis and being run by multinational corporate interests who apparently think that the American armed forces and intelligence community should be surrogates for these political and economic interests. And I'd like to say something to your viewers. This is not traditional American conservative foreign policy. There was a time when the American right was highly distrustful of meddling in foreign countries' business. There was a time when the American right was highly suspicious of a centralized government at home that was threatening the constitutional liberties of our own citizens. And yet we've seen a complete flip-flop on this since the end of the Second World War, and much of the American right today, and unfortunately the neoconservative wing of the Republican Party is dominant, is arguing that we need more intervention abroad, more military operations abroad, at the same time that they say that we need more so-called national security measures at home that, in my judgment, are clearly unconstitutional and are designed to take the United States closer and closer to being the type of police state that clearly you have in Israel. So the United States is in a very, very serious situation, it seems to me, because the founding fathers of this country recognized, as the American people apparently currently don't, that when you have a government that is involved in this type of foreign interventionism and adventurism abroad, that is the same government that at some point is going to turn its guns, so to speak, on its own citizens. And some of the types of things that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was doing during World War II, up to and including the so-called sedition trials of 1944, I think are about to be repeated again as leading neoconservative figures in both the Republican and the Democratic parties are basically calling for the demonization of American citizens on both the political left and the political right, who are in agreement that these policies are highly dangerous and that they are designed to create further problems for the American people, both abroad and at home. Right. I dare add that when you look at these off-year elections tomorrow, whatever the configuration of the American House and Senate is going to be after these elections tomorrow, I think, sadly enough, I've concluded, and I know my friend Mark Glenn of The Ugly Truth has concluded, that we're not likely to see any appreciable change whatsoever in what is going on. Barack Obama is clearly continuing in the same vein as his predecessor, George W. Bush, and no one, it seems to me, in either of the two major political parties is stepping up to the plate to say, hey, we are moving in the wrong direction in this foreign policy in the Middle East. We are moving in the wrong direction in terms of some of the policies that we are advocating at home.
Mr. Dankoff, I hate to cut you off, but I'm going to have to do it. My apologies to you. We're quickly running out of time. Mark Dankoff, a former candidate for the U.S. Senate, speaking with us from San Antonio on the line. Many thanks, sir.